Welcome, thank you for clicking on my channel. We see that the SPY was able to close inside, just right on that daily expected downside move. And we have new updated daily expected moves that we are going to update right after this little intro here so that you can get those on your chart. We just wanted to show off how that was landing there. This is going to potentially be one of the most important data drops, most important Fridays that we will ever experience, because we are at serious risk of seeing something even worse than this, a total collapse. And everyone thinks that that total collapse is coming, but we have some things to show you right in here that are mostly suggesting and using monthly expected moves and weekly expected moves suggesting that we are potentially going to see some kind of rebound from here, and let's get into it. So first things first, for the SPY, we are still outside of a monthly expected move, which means that we have a 68% chance to close the month of March in a couple of weeks from now at higher levels than this, actually above the level of about 570. So very interesting that these monthly expected moves are giving you a 68% chance up here, and you still have a lot of time to work things out to see if this thing is going to reverse around. And we got to get into those shorter time frames because the 2 hour is crossed down. The 2 hour shows another point of more significant divergence, still holding the original divergence point, meaning this could potentially be a bottom right now. This will be one reminder of the bearish thing, and that would be something we talked about a couple of days ago, and that is the failure of the 2 hour. The only thing really on this 2 hour I want to be worried about is if that gets to the center line and curls back down, right? We get some kind of move like this and it's able to fully confirm back down. That would suggest lower prices. But I think the main thing we want to be paying attention to today are our daily expected moves, but also the 30-minute chart. This is one of the best divergences on the 30-minute I have seen in a freaking long time, really. The SPY does have some complex ones, right? And we noticed that we just had this before, like we were attempting to do it here, and we even got more significant here. So this has not confirmed yet, but you do have the price action trailing down. You have started to taper off here. And if you see this MACD cross to the upside, you would be confirming some divergence down here that would potentially give you a bullish reversal. And that's where we want to pay attention to. Where could that bullish reversal get to tomorrow? Well, tomorrow we will be paying attention to 561.79 to the upside and 541.05 to the downside. If you end up seeing bad news from the data in the morning with that Michigan consumer sentiment, 540, this will be a very hard thing to build back from. We will have to pay very close attention if we are violating divergence or anything like that. But if you shoot down to these levels, man, you need a big buyer to step in very quickly in the morning to buy that thing up, or else we are at serious risk of seeing worse things, because right now you are outside of the monthly, meaning you're experiencing something crazy. You're outside or unexpected and crazy. You're outside of the weekly, meaning these are unexpected and crazy. So that's where you can see crazy moments. And that's why you want to be making sure, right? I always am making sure that this is confirming before I make a decision. Now, we have had some other stocks that have confirmed signals just like this that have made me make that decision at this point. Maybe some management of the trade coming in. But if I can get a better position, I'm always happy with that. And I just know that this is something that happens a lot in bear markets before you get some of those bear market rallies. So I want to pay attention to the fact that there is 30-minute divergence that is suggesting a 2 hour can make that move. The 2 hour is still holding all of the divergence points that we really care about down here on the RSI. So if this 2 hour is able to go positive, and that's a big enough move to actually go to positive territory, hey, that thing could take back the 5, and we might start building this thing back up into our 68% zone above 570.08. Let's go check out the Qs though. The Qs, you can see how bad this really will get if this is not a fake out, because you are breaking the channel, right? We are breaking the channel, we are breaking key levels, and we're heading all the way down to almost the breakout area from September. So very big deal here, but we're coming into a great area, right? We're coming into a great area here. So we want to be paying attention, especially as we're outside of monthly and weekly expected moves, because that's when people get caught off guard, right? That's where people start to pile on those bearish bets, and we just go, okay, well, 68% chance to do that, 68% chance to do that. This is not where I want to be piling on the bearish bets. Even if this thing ends up crashing, this would not necessarily be the best decision, at least from my style of thinking at this moment, right? I would like to see some kind of counter move that then fails, and it really looks like we have a chance of that as long as we're seeing some things at the same time, right? We do talk about that a little bit on this channel about how we do like to pay attention to things that are happening at the same time. We can see that the 2 hour has pretty much the same divergences that the SPY does. The only difference here is you have not crossed over this MACD to confirm down, but you are potentially making some kind of double bottom. And this is where I really want to update and give you guys some weekly expected moves, because if we're going to see some kind of upside move, maybe when we want to see a similar confirmation from the Qs that the SPY are going to produce, right? We showed that 30-minute divergence. We showed the 2 hour. We already showed that the 2 hour is showing it here. So now we got to give you some levels to pay attention to. The level to the upside to pay attention to is 479.33 to the upside, right? That's going to be your upside move, and your downside move down here is going to be for the Qs 457.35. Okay, so we have 457.35 and 479.33. So let's check out if we see things at the same time. That's what we like to see on this channel a lot of the time, either the Qs making a higher low or a divergence at the same time as the SPY. And you will notice that you have that extremely significant divergence right here on the RSI and MACD. It has not confirmed yet. It tried to on the RSI and failed for a brief moment. That's why I really like the lagging one, the MACD, because you can see how if everyone is bearish because of this, we are most likely to see a decent size snapback, potentially all the way to 503 or 500. So if that is going to happen, this is where people would get caught off guard. On a Friday, outside of the weekly expected move, outside of the monthly expected move, 68% chance to land up here, 68% chance to land just above that purple line tomorrow by close. So one area that will be the most probable to land in for tomorrow is actually right in these areas right here. We'll see if that's able to take place, but we want to be aware that thing could gap up with this kind of look. It's so significant that if we get good news, we could see good things. But let's just really look at this and go, okay, let's make this very obvious. The price action overall holding flat, if not slightly down, okay, while the MACD is pointing directly up and the RSI is pointing directly up. So if I see that confirmed tomorrow, well, that would tell me that this has potential to make the 2 hour see a decent move here. And if the 2 hour does see a decent move, one thing that we want to be aware of that we talked about a couple days ago when we were talking about all this stuff forming, and look at that, it starts to form. These things have not confirmed yet. Okay, let's just double down on that real quick. These things have not confirmed yet. The indicators are actually telling you more downside, but the 2 hour is suggesting, hey, we might not have that downside if we can get an upside move and confirm that divergence. So the 2 hour could see that move up, and then we could see that still get to the center line and curl back down, right? The way this fails is the 2 hour is able to cross back down into negative territory down here on your MACD. So that's not something we want to happen. We want to see a really strong move that ends up curling up the daily chart, and then we see if the daily chart can take us all the way to 500. If we can break through this level, well, then we'll be paying attention actually to about 511. And if we can break through that, maybe we consolidate in this area for a moment. But if we can get up to these levels, we still will be watching for that lower high. And that's just because of the positioning of the MACD. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's let the price action do whatever the price action wants to do and just make decisions based on, hey, do we see people could get off guard here? Do we see the momentum to the downside is dying? And this is a sign, if this confirms in the morning, that momentum is dying. Now, just to make sure you're clear, that means momentum to the downside is dying. And it could see that shift, but we want to always keep that risk in mind. Apple, though, this one's looking a little bit risky, right? We were worried about this kind of flag happening in some kind of A, B, C move. But has this overall measured move maybe already taken place, right? Have we already seen the worst it's going to get? And you would say so at this point. So if this is going to recover, wouldn't it want to recover with the market with everything else that has better signals than Apple? Apple does not have great reversal signals. The 2 hour is directly down. Apple is very likely to have to make some kind of base here, or at least see a very strong move and get that higher low with some kind of shape like this, right? We know that Apple has a lot of work to do here compared to other stocks. We do see the 30-minute divergence down here, but it really does not look very, what's the word? Maybe happy to me, because this is just not the type of selling I want to see. So Apple might have to see a V here if it's going to see some upside. And you're going to see that when we compare this to something like Amazon. I mean, Amazon, if you look at the 2 hour chart compared to Apple, you're going, wow, this thing is holding every divergence on the RSI. This thing held the tapering and even potentially gave you a double bottom where that 30-minute could curl up into positive territory. And yeah, we came down to that bottom. Might be a double bottom, but it might be a higher low that shoots you past these levels here of about 200, right? If we break through 200, that would be a confident break. Maybe we're able to see that curl down and see those pullbacks to the 5-day moving average, but we got to be aware that these things could turn back around. Right now, Amazon is leaning towards that lower high. We can see how in the shorter time frames, this looks like more of a easy to see setup than something like Apple, and that's why I just wanted to show it off right after showing you Apple, because we're still paying attention to lower highs, but you have great 2-hour reversal signals. If that curls down, watch out. That means bad things, right? That means it's failing. But if this 30-minute is able to curl up in the morning, it really looks like we're gearing up for a strong move. We will be aware if this becomes more complex as we have more options, actually way more options expiring next Friday. Got to watch out for that triple witching. Tesla actually doing some great stuff here, right? This was very dangerous. This was very dangerous for Tesla to do this, and it needed a strong move and to hold up better, in my opinion, to continue to see upside. So this is a good thing, I think, for bulls to attempt to take back that 5 if we see the 30-minute roll back up into positive territory, right? It's curling up right by the center line. This is why the positioning of the MACD is very important, right? If it's here, I'm still going, okay, that could pull back even though we're close to the center line. If it's in the middle, I got to be a little bit fearful. If it's really, really close to that center line, that's when we see things like this, things like this over here, right? We see those easy failures. This is not technically an easy failure. This could turn to the upside, and this could be some kind of cup and handle to see a decent move to go test something up here, right? Something up towards maybe even 280, right? These levels up here towards 280, pretty nice. Will that be a retest and fail? Well, we're going to have to look at the 2-hour chart, which is also showing a 2-hour divergence. So now you have Amazon with 2-hour divergence. Now you have Tesla with 2-hour divergence. Now you have the SPY with 2. We're starting to see a theme here, but these things need to confirm. If they do not confirm and these signals fail, you can get all that distribution of bottled up bullishness can turn into selling. So you have to be making sure, and I'm saying this more like, I always want to remind myself. That's why I appreciate this channel. It allows me to talk out loud. It allows me to remind myself, hey, make sure to be trading like water. Make sure to have a plan if this goes wrong. I know these 30-minute setups look really, really good, but that doesn't mean I can't do my own due diligence before I take a trade and make sure to have a plan for not only if it goes right, but if it goes wrong. And that's a big deal, and that's going to be a very big deal with Tesla. But Tesla has collapsed by about 55%. Tesla has crashed. Right, Tesla has crashed. So Tesla is very, very likely to get a lower high. An area that we want to pay attention to for that lower high is going to be this block in here, with the most positive and able to go back to the bull side is if we really are able to take back 357.78 when this is all done. But let's just make sure that these little signals in here are confirming and everything's holding and nothing's failing, so we don't have to manage any kind of trade. Now we're going to pop over to Nvidia just briefly here, because the daily divergence here, I wanted to talk about this because it technically was slightly, just ever so slightly, but very flat. It was slightly violated. So that is starting to add up to, hey, there might not even be divergence there at this point, right? We don't really see it on the MACD. We're kind of violating it on the RSI, just barely, but we still want to treat that like a violation. So that just means to us, we might want to be sure that this thing isn't curling down on a daily chart if we get a big move here. But Nvidia had great signals, right? Nvidia not only had great signals on the 2-hour, which we mentioned, right? And we even put that video out on Patreon during market hours to talk about Nvidia a little bit. 2-hour divergences here, and you're seeing that hold on the RSI above that center line and really kind of flagging out. So if we look at this 30-minute, you're going to notice something here, and that's the fact that the 30-minute also had divergence down here on the RSI and the MACD at the same time. So this is just what we look for, and we use those weekly and monthly expected moves over on Patreon to help us find out when we should actually be paying attention to these stocks, right? And now it says, hey, potential to pay attention right now. Now you'll notice that the 30-minute has crossed over, but the positioning of the MACD says, I'm not too worried about this just yet, right? I'm more worried if that starts to go negative, but as of right now, this could just be consolidation in some way to turn to the upside. The only bummer about Nvidia that I don't like is the fact that it left behind this gap, so that always invites us to reach down before we're able to see that next upside move in case there's some unfinished business here. Nvidia looks really, really nice, and hopefully this ends up being some good moves to the upside so the daily chart can curl up, and then we can see that bullishness kick in. It really looks like a lot of things are gearing up for a big move to the upside. We just want to be aware that these things can fail, right? One, they can fail and things can get ugly. They could see an upside move for a few days and then fail, and then we set some kind of trap going into triple witching next week. Someone did ask me what's the potentially best looking divergence. I actually think this 2-hour divergence from AMT might be the best. Now, this is pretty flat floor, almost like a double bottom, and we'll notice how significant this really is on the RSI and MACD. So another stock, AMD, showing a reversal signal. We're starting to see a theme here, okay? Now, if these all fail, that's going to be awful, okay? So we need to make sure these things are actually showing good moves to the upside and holding those good moves, and no management of the trade needs to come in. AMD did leave a gap to the upside. We have not filled the gap to the downside. So what if that first move is down, then we curl up? Hey, we still want to be aware that resistance can come in there, but this would be a great way to get a morning fake out and then see that move to the upside. And the reason I want to pay attention to a first move in the morning as a fake out, maybe that first 30-minute bar, is because the Michigan consumer sentiment does not come out until 9 a.m. and we do have a lot lower forecast and consensus this time. So we do have the opportunity to potentially even beat the numbers here for the Michigan consumer sentiment, and it really depends on how people are going to read into that tomorrow, and we can pay attention with momentum to see how people are positioning their money, right? It's less important to pay attention to the actual data point. It might be important in the macro side of things, but if you're trying to trade this right after a data point, you need to really be paying attention to the reaction and make sure that reaction is the first one is the good one, right? Confirming good signals. That's a big thing with these stocks right now. Meta is another one, just showing the 2-hour divergence just all the way across here, guys. You have quadruple divergence on Meta. Meta looks like it's gearing up for a move. It might have just wanted to do what we talked about in that Patreon video and the video from 2 days ago, really just suggesting, and yesterday's video, right? We said all of this yesterday, where the 30-minute can reject from that 5-day moving average, get people nice and bullish down at lower levels, maybe even slightly sweep the low to take out some stops, and then curl up into positive territory with a divergence. And we do see that right there on the MACD and RSI at the same time. Now, the first divergence was pretty damn tight, right? Tight. But we still got a move from it to go test that 5. If we're able to hold up here and create that double bottom and cross through something like 630, that would be fantastic. And that means, hey, we might be starting these moves to the upside for something like Meta. To briefly show a couple of these off, because we will notice that you do have Microsoft with the good divergence on the 2-hour. Another signal that likes to curl up daily charts, very dependent on if we get some good data. You'll notice that the 30-minute is turned down right now, so I don't necessarily want to be thinking that 2 hours is going to go up, 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 up when it's really, really negative, and you just had a 30-minute curl down by the center line, which still holds a lot of probabilities to test the low, go make a new one. Looks like as of right now, we are testing those lows. We will see if we need to make some kind of divergence first in the morning, but mainly paying attention to confirmation, because we did leave behind this very, very interesting gap right here, and I think that's a perfect level to build up to, and we even marked off these levels in here. But if we can get past that, past this zone, and curl down and curl back up, it looks pretty nice. We also briefly wanted to talk about Google trying to more so set up a higher low here, really reacting to a good point, then seeing that bigger pullback, right? We have bigger volatility, so bigger pullbacks make sense. But still, if we can solidify this as just a really, really not the best, but still higher low, this is close to the center line. If this 30-minute curls up, we can see that positivity starting right away tomorrow, right? This was the first thing we were really paying attention to, was do we need to make that 30-minute divergence before this 2-hour can really get going, even though it confirms? So this is where management of trade comes in, or building a position if you're taking those longer out. And this is really where we want to pay attention, because the 2-hour did something very interesting here. We haven't come down to lower levels on this MACD. We haven't come down to lower levels on the RSI, and we're still holding the original divergence. So very interesting. And Google has one of the most significant divergence I've seen. And it's just AMD is a little bit more significant, but Google is just insane how significant some of these divergences are, and how much these divergences could cause us to rip, because we're pretty damn close to the center line with these on a lot of these stocks. AMC is still holding the divergence. This thing is just down, 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 not really getting any relief, and really wiping out any kind of signals that would suggest, hey, this has a chance to see a great upside move. The only thing you have left is a flat divergence on the RSI, and that divergence here on the MACD on the 2-hour chart. So that does suggest we can see daily curl ups. This is kind of something that I would just put out there, and I would just say it for myself. Something I am doing right now with the type of signals that we have in the market, it seems like almost everything could squeeze together. So even though AMC has ended up in the downward direction, If this thing confirms, I might even add more to the play, but I've already started to make a position here for an option play for AMC, still holding on to the stock. But this is just such an interesting look. If this daily chart's able to curl up, you have daily divergence, and you do have the market where a lot of 2-hour divergences are showing. So maybe everything rips up for a bit, and then if AMC and GME are going to take over, hey, maybe that's when we get that lower high in the market. GME, very interesting though, because it is violating the daily divergence. So we don't really like to see that. You can see that from the RSI that we have violated the divergence. You don't like to see that. That's not an overall good thing, but we are reacting down into the block where we experience that breakout, right? So we'll pay attention to this, but the signals for GME don't look as good. If you want to join us and subscribe, we do put out the weekly expected moves, and something about the data, especially tomorrow and going into next week, we can really look into this data and see if big moves are expected. Something that does happen when those short squeezes happen is usually the short sellers know something's going on, right? They're like, hey, we're tapping out, we're out of liquidity, blah, 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 blah. We need to do something crazy. And that actually usually shows up in the options, right? It shows up in the IV. So we could see a moment where GME right now is at like 76% implied volatility. It's been lower than Tesla for a long time, right? With its IV every week. But if that picks up to 4, 5, 600%, those are things that I've seen over with stocks like Wolf that have seen crazy squeezes before that have been the moments where it actually sees like 100, 200% move. So that's just something I'm watching for. It's hard to see that until Friday close, but we'll be paying attention to it. And GME, I really hope that AMC helps you out here and is able to confirm the signals that it's holding, or else you guys might be flushing even more because all of the indicators are pointing down. I am just going to take a potential risk to reward play here. One thing to be aware of tomorrow is going to be volatility. It still remains by the 5-day moving average. We have seen that the daily chart has not crossed down yet on the MACD, and volatility is overall still escalated. So if volatility is escalated, we always want to be open to pops, and I think volatility would be a good sign like, hey, watch out for big drops in the market if this 2-hour crosses. Now, if that's brief, like it happens right away and then data just shoots it down, that is something we'll watch for if we curl back down while we're by the center line, right? It's something that we do with trading like water. But the 30 minutes going to be a good hint for this, and it looks like we could see some kind of downward move first. So if we are going to experience a trap before we get data, because volatility opens up overnight, right, early in the morning, we could see this 30-minute curl down. But you notice we did make that divergence there, rejection divergence on the MACD, RSI divergence showing there. So if this does dip down to lower levels, we still want to be aware if another divergence point does show its head, because that would cause it to be on the MACD fully at the same time as the RSI as that comes down and curls back up. So we will be paying attention to this, but these are just little warning signals that VIX could give you. You will see those warning signals a lot of the time. It's mainly important to see if those signals fail, because if those signals fail, you really don't want to be on the other side when stocks are bottled up like this, right? If those signals fail, meaning the volatility signals fail an upside move and curl back down, you really want to be careful with all these reversal signals, because VIX could go down aggressively. We could see an aggressive move to the upside. And if I took big volatility calls because I'm like, yeah, this is going, and then it curls back down and all these reversal signals print, you might be on the wrong side of a big thing, and you just want to be paying attention to that because it can really hurt you in these scenarios. So for the SPY, I think it's the perfect thing to look at. I think it's just perfect because you're seeing pretty much similar looks throughout a lot of the market right now, which is, hey, obviously we got to get above this key level. Look at the wicks that came in at those levels. So the daily expected move is fantastic. The 5-day is right there as well. It would get you back in that weekly expected move. You have 30-minute divergence down here. You have 2-hour divergence on the MACD and RSI right now. We just have to be aware if that 2 hour is some kind of trap, if it wants to be more complex. But other than that, it really looks like, you know, I would at least be safe here in saying in the next week, we're probably going to carve out this bottom. We might have carved it out already right now. And the main takeaway is watch out if you see a lot of things confirmed, because we can see a solid retrace move that creates a lower high, or really a lot of things in the charts are telling me to be very aware of a lower high, but for some reason my gut keeps saying watch out if this thing goes to new all-time highs. I still want to leave that 1% chance we could go to new all-time highs for some reason. I just keep having that gut feeling and I'm going to pay attention to it because a lot of the time my gut has things right. Doesn't mean I'm going to place big money or something like that up at these levels. I'm still going to watch this throughout, but if I don't see major points of weakness, aka a 2-hour divergence, hey, this thing could potentially pull up to higher levels, pull back, and then end up at all-time highs. So let's take it into consideration. Let's really focus on the fact that we just have trade setups. It just looks like trade setups. It just looks like bullish reversal signals, right? These look like divergences that like to turn around stocks while we are outside of our 68% zones to the downside. So if we take that with some common sense and really simplify it, it would just say, if these things confirm, the highest percentage thing to happen is the SPY is going to attempt to make a move back above 570.08, and that's all we'll have to read into for now. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for liking and subscribing. I hope that you found something in this video helpful. If you have any questions or anything like that, please show up to the live show in the morning, and make sure if you want daily expected moves, you are joining that Patreon down in the description. We just put them out before this video, so grab it right now for just $7, right? A cup of coffee, and you'll get some things that are very, very valuable for a trader. Thanks, guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you in the morning. Peace.